The collision happened at 7:22 on a Tuesday morning, on the corner of Marsh and 11th, in the specific way that most collisions happen. Not dramatically, not with the movie-quality sound of things destroying each other, but with a single hard thud and then silence, and then the slow understanding that something had just changed. Her car was a white Mercedes. Current year, the kind of vehicle that costs more than most people make in 3 years, and shows it in a way that is not meant to be subtle. His truck was a 2002 Chevy Silverado, blue originally, faded now to something closer to the color of a sky that had been through a lot of weather. The rear left panel had been replaced at some point with a panel from a different truck, slightly different shade, which Nathan had always meant to address and never had. She had run a red light. She would not say this directly when the police officer arrived, but the officer had a dashcam feed from the traffic camera on the corner, and it said what it said. He got up out of the truck and walked to the rear panel and looked at it for a moment. The damage was significant. The panel he had always meant to replace was now the least of his problems. His daughter was in the passenger seat. She was 6 years old. She had her seatbelt on because she always had her seatbelt on, because they had a rule about this that had never required enforcement, because she had decided when she was 4 that the seatbelt was simply correct, and that was that. "Dad," she said through the window. "Yeah. Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Is the truck okay?" He looked at it. "Not really. Is the other car okay?" He looked over his shoulder at the Mercedes. The front end was compressed. The hood had lifted slightly at the center. It was not a small amount of damage. "Not really," he said. The door of the Mercedes opened. The woman who got out was tall, late 30s, wearing the specific expression of someone who has done something they know they have done and have not yet decided what to do with that fact. Her coat was the kind of gray that costs money to look that simple. Her hair was pulled back. She looked at her car. She looked at his truck. She looked at him. She did not apologize. What she said instead was, "I'll have this handled by end of business today. My assistant will call you." He looked at her. He was very still in the way that people are still when they are choosing not to say what they are thinking. "I need your insurance information," he said. "My assistant will have all of that to you." "I need it now," he said, "for the report." She looked at him for a moment with an expression that was not quite dismissive, but was related to dismissiveness, the way a cousin is related to someone you don't know well. Then she opened her bag and produced her card and held it out. He took it. He looked at it. He looked at it for 2 seconds longer than it takes to read a business card. He looked up at her. She had not noticed. He put the card in his jacket pocket and said nothing more. The police officer arrived 4 minutes later. The report took 11 minutes to complete. She made one call from the sidewalk during those 11 minutes, brief and quiet, her back half turned. He drove the truck home afterward, slowly, the rear making a sound it had not made before. His daughter watching him from the passenger seat, with the particular attentiveness she used when she understood something was not right, but had decided that the most useful thing she could do was be quiet. At a stoplight, she said, "Who was she?" "I don't know," he said. He said it because it was true in every way that mattered right then. But he had read the name on the card, and the name had changed everything. Stay until the end. Drop your city in the comments. I want to know how far this one reaches. Marcus Hale had been waking up at 6 every morning for the past 5 years because his daughter Cora had decided at age 1 that 6 was the correct time for the day to begin, and had maintained this position without exception through illness, school holidays, and the one spectacular thunderstorm that had knocked the power out for 16 hours and still found her standing beside his bed at exactly 6 in. The morning, waiting. She was 6 now. She had a specific way of waking up, not gradual, not sleepy-eyed. She came awake all at once, like a lamp switching on, and was immediately at full operational capacity, which meant that by 6:05, most mornings she had already asked 2 questions and made one observation about something she had noticed through the window, while he was still trying to locate the edges of the day. That Tuesday, she asked about the squirrel that lived in the oak tree across the street. "Do squirrels remember where they put things?" she said. "Most of them, yes. Not all of them. So some squirrels are just finding other squirrels' food. Probably." She considered this at the kitchen table, while he made oatmeal with the brown sugar she liked on the left side only. Not mixed in, just placed there, so she could decide how much to incorporate per spoonful, which was a preference he had identified when she was 3, and accommodated every time without being asked. I feel bad for the squirrel who forgot, she said. The one who found someone else's food probably feels fine. That's the problem, she said, with the specific gravity she brought to moral questions. Marcus had been running Hale Property Services for 4 years. Before that, he had worked for 11 years as a senior property manager at Crestfield Holdings, which was a private real estate investment firm that had, at its peak, managed $800 million in commercial and residential assets across the Midwest. He had been the youngest regional director in the company's history. He had also been the person who had found the discrepancy. He did not think about that period of his life often. He had made a decision about it, and the decision had cost him his position and a significant amount of money, and had rearranged everything he thought the next 10 years would look like. He had made the decision anyway, because it was the only decision he could make, and still be the person he was. He had kept everything documented, and he had never told anyone what he had documented. He told himself he was waiting for the right time. He had been waiting for 4 years. Hale Property Services managed residential properties for individual landlords, maintenance coordination, tenant communication, inspection scheduling, the specific and unglamorous work of keeping buildings functioning in ways their owners could not always attend to themselves. He had 12 clients and 43 units under management, and an office that was half of his kitchen table, and a filing system that was organized with the precision of someone who had once managed 8 times this volume and had not unlearned the habits. His truck was a 2002 Chevy Silverado that he had owned since the year he left Crestfield, and that he had maintained with the same methodical attention he gave everything. It ran. It had over 200,000 miles on it, and it ran. He had replaced the rear left panel 3 years ago with a panel from a salvage yard that was close but not exact, and he had always meant to address this, and had always had more pressing things to address first. He drove Cora to school every morning. She sat in the passenger seat with her seatbelt on because she had decided at 4 that the seatbelt was simply correct, which was a decision he had not engineered and was quietly proud of regardless. That Tuesday, the light at Marsh and 11th was green when he entered the intersection. Vivienne Crestfield ran Crestfield Holdings from the 41st floor of a building on Michigan Avenue that her father had purchased in 1987 and renovated in 2003, and that still had his name on the lobby wall in the original font he had chosen. She passed it every morning and had stopped seeing it the way you stop seeing things that have always been there. She was 37. She had taken over the company following her father's death 14 months ago. He had died of a cardiac event on a Tuesday in March, quickly, without warning, in his office, which was now her office, which she had not redecorated, because she had not yet decided if redecoration was the right response to the situation or just a response. Her father, William Crestfield, had built the company from a single apartment building in 1981. By the time he died, it held $1.1 billion in assets across 4 states. Forbes had profiled him 6 times. In every profile, he had said the same thing when asked what made the company successful. People before property. He had said it with the conviction of someone who believed it completely. Vivienne had grown up in this company the way other children grow up in houses. Not always comfortable, not always fully understanding the structure, but shaped by it in ways she was still discovering. She saw the Harfa directness and her mother's patience, and had been told her whole life that she had his instincts, which was the compliment he gave most carefully and least often. The problem she could not solve was the one he had left her. In the weeks before he died, her father had begun drafting a document. His executive assistant had found it on his computer. Not a will, not a company directive, but something structured like a letter, addressed to no one specifically, describing a decision he had made 11 years ago that he described as the worst professional decision of his life. The letter was incomplete. He had not told her he was writing it. He had not told his attorney. He had not told anyone. The incomplete letter referenced a name, a person who had come to him with information, documentation, a set of facts that had required a choice. The letter described the choice he had made and called it wrong. It said the person had deserved better. It said he had always intended to correct it. The name in the letter was Marcus Hale. Vivienne had spent 4 months trying to find Marcus Hale. Her father's assistant had no file on him. The HR records from that period were archived, and the archive had gaps. She had found a reference in a property management licensing database, Hale, property services operating in Chicago, but no contact information, no address, no way in that felt right for a conversation of this weight. She had been thinking about it when she drove through the intersection at Marsh and 11th on a Tuesday morning, with her attention divided in the way attention sometimes divides when the mind is carrying too much at once. She did not see the light until after. She was on the phone with her attorney at 9:15, staying at the window of her office, with the city below her, and the card she had given the man at the accident scene turning slowly in her other hand. The attorney was explaining the standard process: insurance coordination, damage assessment, the particular way these things moved when one party had significant resources and the other did not. She listened to all of it. She turned the card over in her hand. Vivienne, the attorney said, "Are you following this?" "Yes," she said. "Do you want me to have someone reach out to the other party?" "I'll do it," she said. A pause. "Personally, yes, you don't need to do that. This is a straightforward. I'll do it," she said. She ended the call. She looked at the card she had given him. She had not considered, in the moment she handed it to him, that he would have handed her a card in return. She had been in the mode she sometimes entered under pressure, efficient, forward, moving past the moment before it fully arrived. She had taken his card without looking at it and put it in her coat pocket. She took it out now, she read it again. Hale Property Services. Marcus Hale. She stood very still for a long time. Her assistant knocked and opened the door and saw her expression and said nothing, and closed the door quietly, because her assistant was good at this. Vivienne looked out the window. 14 months of not being able to find a name. An accident on a corner on a Tuesday morning. The specific, irrational, impossible way that things sometimes arrive. She sat down at her father's desk, which was now her desk's, in her father's chair, which had been adjusted to fit her 4 months ago, but still sometimes felt like it belonged to someone else. She picked up the phone. Marcus was in the parking lot of a hardware store, on the phone with a contractor about a leaking roof on one of his managed properties, when his phone buzzed with an unknown Chicago number. He let it go to voicemail. The contractor finished his thought. They agreed on Thursday. He ended the call. He checked the voicemail. It was brief, a woman's voice, professional and controlled. "Mr. Hale, this is Vivienne Crestfield. I believe you worked for my father's company some years ago. I would like to meet with you, not about the accident this morning, about something else. Please call me." He sat in the truck for a while. The truck that was damaged because of her. The damage that would cost money he would have to absorb while the insurance processed. He sat in the truck and looked at the hardware store parking lot and thought about the folder in the filing cabinet in his kitchen office that he had not opened in 4 years but had never thrown away. He had known this was going to arrive eventually. He had not known what shape it would arrive in. He called Cora's grandmother and asked if she could pick up from school that day. She could. He called the contractor back and moved Thursday's roof assessment to Friday. He sat for another moment. Then he called the number back. Vivienne's office was on the 41st floor and looked like what it was. The office of a person who had inherited a space from someone they loved and had not yet found the right relationship to it. Her father's awards were still on the wall. Her own things were on the desk. Lean, functional, nothing decorative except a single framed photograph on the left corner that Marcus noticed without trying to look at it directly. A man and a younger woman, somewhere outdoor, the man laughing, the woman looking at the camera, with the specific expression of someone who knows the person holding it very well. Vivienne was standing when he came in. She did not sit immediately. She looked at him in the specific way of someone who has been trying to find a person for a long time and has just walked into a room with them. "Mr. Hale," she said. "Marcus. Vivienne." She gestured to the chair across from her desk. They both sat. She looked at him for a moment. "You know why I asked you here?" "Your father's letter," he said. She was very still. "You know about the letter." "I didn't know about the letter specifically. I knew he was the kind of man who would eventually write one." She looked at the desk. He died before he finished it. I know. I saw the obituary. She looked at him. Were you going to come forward? He looked at her evenly. I was waiting to understand what the right thing was to do. I still am. She was quiet for a moment. He called what he did the worst professional decision of his life. It was a bad decision, Marcus said. It had consequences for a lot of people. Tell me what happened, she said. From your side. The letter is incomplete. I need to understand what he left out. He looked at her. He had thought about this conversation for 4 years. He had thought about how it would go, and what he would say, and what he would hold back, and what he owed and to whom. He had not thought it would be sitting across from a woman who looked like her father laughing in a photograph, and whose was clearly carrying something she had been carrying for 14 months without the right information to put it down. 11 years ago, he said, I was the regional director of Crestfield Holdings. I found an irregularity in the financial records for a commercial development project in the South Loop. It was not a small irregularity. It implicated two of your father's senior partners. The documentation was clear. She was listening without moving. I brought it to your father directly. I had everything. The transaction records, the parallel accounts, the communication trail. I gave him a complete folder. I told him that the legal exposure, if it was not addressed, was significant. I told him I was prepared to support whatever course of action he decided was right. What did he do? She said. He thanked me. He told me he would handle it. 3 months later, the two partners left the company. Their first departure was described internally as retirement. No legal action, no disclosure. The financial irregularity was absorbed into a restructuring. And 6 months after that, I was let go. Performance review. Clean separation. No cause stated. She was very still. He paid you a settlement, she said. It was not a question. She had found that part in the financial records, yes, which you accepted. I had a daughter 18 months old. I had no income. Yes, I accepted it. She looked at the desk. She looked at the photograph. She looked back at him. He protected them, she said. He made a choice. He was protecting the company, I think. The partners had relationships that were important to several major developments in progress at the time. An exposure event would have paused all of it. He was trying to hold something together. And you paid the price. He looked at her. My daughter was 18 months old. Her mother had just passed. I needed to work. And the only reference I could have used from that part of my career was the man who had just separated me. Something in Vivienne's face changed. Not dramatically. Just the slight shift that happens when a piece of information arrives that reframes the whole shape of what you've been looking at. He knew that, she said slowly. He knew your wife had just passed. Yes. She was quiet for a long time. Long enough that Marcus looked out the window at the city below. 41 floors. The same city he had driven through every day for 4 years in a truck with a mismatched rear panel. The two partners, she said. They're not with the company anymore. No. The development project they manipulated, it was sold 3 years ago. The liability no longer attaches to the company. I know. She looked at him. My father wanted to correct this. That's what the letter says. He wanted to correct it before. She stopped. He ran out of time. Yes. She looked at the folder he had set on the desk when he came in. She had not asked about the folder. She asked now. The original documentation, he said. Everything I gave your father. I kept copies. She looked at the folder for a long moment. You kept it for 11 years. I kept it because it was true, and because I knew that eventually the truth of it would matter to someone. She picked up the folder. She opened it. She read the first page slowly, then turned it, then the next. He watched her read. She read with the attention of someone who is reconstructing something from a document they should have been given years ago and was not. When she finished, she set it down. I want to make this right, she said. Whatever form that takes, financially, professionally, publicly, if you want that. My father's letter says he intended to. I intend to. He looked at her. What do you think the right form is? She looked at him directly. I don't know yet. I think that depends on what you need. What you actually need. Not what a settlement and offer would calculate. He was quiet for a moment. I need the separation from Crestfield to be accurately recorded. Performance review was the stated cause. That's on record, and it's false. That record has followed me for 4 years. I'll have that corrected this week. I need a reference letter, accurate, reflecting 11 years of work and the circumstances under which I left. Done. He looked at her. That's what I need professionally. What I would want, separately, is for the two partners to be named correctly somewhere. Not for my benefit, because other people who worked under them in that period deserve to know why the company changed the way it did. She looked at him. That's more complicated. I know. I'm not saying no. I'm saying it will take time and legal guidance, and I want to do it correctly. Can you give me time on that one? I've given it 4 years, he said. I can give it more. Something in her expression broke the way things break when they have been held under pressure for a long time, and something finally releases. Not a collapse, a release. Your daughter, she said, the one from this morning. She was very calm. She usually is. When I got out of the car, she looked at me through the window. She looks at most things. She's trying to figure them out. Vivienne looked at the folder on her desk. She got out eventually. After the officer arrived, she stood beside you the whole time. She does that. How old? 6. Vivienne looked at the photograph on her desk. The man laughed. The woman who knew the person holding the camera. My father would have wanted to meet her, she said. What was he like? Marcus said. She looked at the photograph. He made mistakes, but he knew what they were. He spent the last part of his life trying to understand the difference between what he had done and who he was. She was quiet for a moment. I think he believed they were the same thing. I think he was wrong about that, but I understand why he couldn't get there. Marcus looked at the desk. He gave me a settlement when he could have given me nothing. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to. No, I thought about that too, Marcus said. For 4 years, she looked at him. There was something in the look that was more than the professional weight of the conversation, more than the obligation she had walked in carrying. It was the look of someone who is in a room with a person they did not expect to find here and is deciding what to do with that. She did not do anything with it yet. She was too honest for that. Can I ask something that is not about any of this? She said. He waited. The property management. Hale Property Services. Is that what you want to be doing? He thought about this for a moment. I'm good at it. It's smaller than what I built before. That's not what I asked. He looked at her. No, it's not what I would have chosen if the choice had been clear, but it was what was available, and I made it into something I could be proud of. She looked at the folder. Crestfield Holdings manages 14 commercial properties that are currently under-optimized. My father built a portfolio and did not build the management structure to match it. I have been looking for 6 months for someone who understands both the asset side and the operation side well enough to actually fix it. He was very still. I'm not offering you something as a repair, she said. I want to be clear about that. This would be a separate thing from everything in that folder. But I'm asking if you'd be interested in having a different conversation, separately, when this one is done. He looked at her for a long moment. Yes, he said, I'd be interested in that. She nodded. She looked at the photograph again. He would have wanted to fix this himself, she said. I wish he'd had the chance. I know, Marcus said. I think he was building toward it. He was, she said. He just ran out of time. The city was bright outside the window. 41 floors down, on a corner somewhere to the south, there was an intersection where a traffic camera had recorded what it recorded, and where 2 people had exchanged cards without reading them, and where a truck had sustained damage that was going to take 3 weeks to repair, and that Marcus would manage because he managed what needed to be managed. He stood. She stood. She extended her hand and he shook it, and it was not the handshake of 2 people concluding a transaction, but of 2 people who had just walked through something together and were still finding their footing on the other side. The reference letter will be with you by Friday, she said. Thank you. The record correction by Thursday. Thank you. She walked him to the door. At the threshold, she stopped. Your daughter, she said. This morning, when I said my assistant would handle everything. She was watching me through the window. She watches. She didn't look angry. She's not an angry person. She looked, Vivienne searched for the word, like she was waiting for me to do better. He looked at her. She does that too, he said. She's usually right. Vivienne held the door for a moment. On Friday, when you come in for the letter, bring her if you like. He looked at her. My father had a jar of butterscotch candies on his desk for 40 years. I kept them. She can have some if she wants. He looked at the photograph one more time. The man laughing, the things people leave behind. I'll ask her, he said. She'll say yes. She's always said yes to butterscotch. He took the elevator down. He walked through the lobby with his father's name on the wall, her father's name, in the original font, and through the glass doors and out into the city. He sat in the rental car the insurance had provided. Because his truck was in the shop. He sat for a moment. He called Cora. She answered at the first ring, which she always did because she had a rule about this. Dad, hey, how did it go? Good, he said. It went well. Did you tell her? I told her everything. A pause. Was she okay? He thought about Vivienne Crestfield at her father's desk, with the photograph on the corner, reading a folder that had waited 11 years to be read by the right person. She was better than okay, he said. Good, Cora said. And then, in the tone she used when she had processed something and reached a conclusion, the squirrel thing. Yeah, I figured it out. The squirrel who forgets. She doesn't lose the food. She just doesn't know where to look. And the other squirrel finds it for her, even if neither of them knows that's what happened. He sat in the rental car on the street below the 41st floor. Yeah, he said, that's exactly what happened. If this story reached you, hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. And subscribe, because the next story is already written, and it starts exactly where this one left off.